Well, we're going to start with the very first panel of our final conference, which is called METICOS Navigating the EU Border Control Landscape, Challenges, Opportunities and Collaboration. I would like to call the panelists to come up. Thank you for that. And I will give you, of course, the floor to introduce yourself and pretty much everything. So we have Javier Galbally from EU LISA, Dr. Javier Galbally. We have Fernando Otero Arceo from DG Home and the Digital Schengen Unit. We have our very own Marie Käärik and Hannes Järvinen from the Estonian Police and Border Guard Board. And of course, our project coordinator, Panelists, who he will not be an actual panelist, but an official commenter of what we are going to discuss. As we have a presentation from the DG Home, I would suggest to start with that very presentation, and after that we can proceed to the panel. Of course, you may sit. Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, still good morning now at this time to everyone. And my name is Fernando Otero, as he introduced me. I work in the Directorate General Home in the unit called recently Digital Schengen. And most precisely, we work with the systems that I will present, which are these acronyms that you see there, which as usual, they are full, EES and ETIAS, which stand respectively for EES is Entry-Exit System, and ETIAS is European Travel Information and Authentication System. So these two systems are based on regulations, the one from Entry-Exit dating from 2017, and the one from ETIAS, a regulation dating from 2018, so are now 6 and 7 years long, respectively. I don't know the knowledge you have of this system, so I suppose the audience is very varied, so maybe I will bore some of you, but it's better to go through some basic details, which will ease then the discussions in the panel. So I'm not going to go too much in detail, but that's why the presentation is called State of Play. So a bit you will see the objectives and where we are and what do we intend to do. So obviously the presentation will be split in the two systems. So I will start with the Entry-Exit system, which is the oldest, just by 1 year. So which is the purpose of the system? Obviously, both systems are connected to the border control, to migration and security in particular. And the purpose of the Entry-Exit system is identify overstayers, so people who stay illegally within the Schengen area, or we will speak a bit about the scope. In principle, the systems are the scope is a bit broader than the Schengen area. You will see both for systems, but they are not exactly the same. But let's suppose that the bottom line is the Schengen area. So improve the external border controls of this area, combat or fight identity fraud, people who come with fake passports, fake travel documents, who try to, and reinforce the internal security. These are the main purposes of the Entry-Exit system. The numbering is not good. I will need to correct it. So about planning, well, now it comes at a good moment because last week we have the so-called Justice and Home Affairs Council who took a decision which is like to decide the date of entry of the Entry-Exit system, and it should take place next year, most precisely autumn next year. After, well, you may imagine that these systems will never, we never want to introduce them during the peak seasons, like summer season or Christmas season, so this was always an idea. And the idea is that member states should be ready around summer next year, finished with the testing and training needed to implement the systems, and therefore, as from September, let's say, the exact date, which will be decided by a commission implementing decision, should be written in this decision, but it should be in the second part of 2024, let's say. So, and that's the switch. The scope. So what does the Entry-Exit system basically do? It registers both entries and exits of all third country nationals, so all all those who are not EU citizens, traveling for a short stay. So we do not register those traveling for a long stay with a long stay visa, for example, but those for a short stay. A short stay, more precisely, is defined by what you see there. So it's the rule of you are allowed to stay 90 days out of each 180 days period. So basically, every six months, you are allowed to stay 90 days. And that's where the scope I was referring to come to and from 29 European countries which use the system. In the case of entry-exit, these 29 European countries are the 27 Schengen states, which you may know, no? I suppose at least up to Schengen this is known, plus Bulgaria and Romania, who, as you know, are not yet Schengen states, but they are part of the entry-exit system. And this is what we call in our jargon variable geometry, because you will see that for ETIAS it's different. So every third country national who enters this area for a short stay, at entry, there will be an electronic record in this database, and at exit, there will be another electronic record. So this will allow to check every day how many people are staying and how many people have overstayed their 90 days limit because they have, for example, an entry. We are 91 days afterwards, and there is no exit register. This is just one example of the queries that can be done to the system. So, and that's important. It concerns both visa-exempt and visa-required travelers. So it's for every non-EU citizen. That's the typical question. An American citizen is in the scope, a British citizen is in the scope, a Canadian citizen is in the scope. All non-EU citizens will be registered in entry-exit, no matter whether they require a visa or not. What will not be registered is therefore the EU citizens, or that there are many exceptions which you will be able to read in Article 2 of the regulation, but I will mention the most important cases, I should say the most frequent, which are the holders of residence cards and of residence permits. This, even if they are non-EU citizens, if they will be out of the scope of entry-exit, they will not be registered either. And, well, you cannot go through the hyperlink, but if you go to the, I should have mentioned the legal base, I can mention then in the end, it's 217.22226. And in Article 2, it's the same for ETIAS. Article 2 is the one which lists the exceptions for both systems. So in Article 2, you will see, for example, residence card holders or residence permit holders. So the other important difference, as from the entry-exit system entry into operation, is that there will be no longer stamps in the passports, because this will be replaced by this electronic entry in this database. So border guards will no longer stamp passports, but they will enter the alphanumerical and the biometric data in the entry-exit database. And this involves as well that, for example, single and double entry visas will no longer be ticked by border guards. You know that there are visas who are only single or double entry, so at this stage, when they are consumed, the border guard ticks them to show consumption. This will no longer be the case. This will be registered electronically, and that's why, and that's important, carriers who are now prior to boarding those travelers, open the passport and see, for example, if these visas have been consumed, they will need to use an electronic tool, because this information will no longer be available through a manual inspection of the passport. You will force to introduce the passport data and try to obtain whether the visa has been consumed. And last but not least, the refusals of entry are also recorded. So the border guard will know when a traveler comes, whether in the past this passenger, this third country national, had a refusal of entry. So this is roughly the scope of the entry-exit system. Now, a bit about, because as you can imagine, this system impacts many stakeholders, And the mechanisms to distribute the information are much more complex than just when we are addressing EU citizens, for which we count on member states, and we are able to disseminate the information appropriately. Here it's much more complex because it's for the whole world. And basically it's the non-EU citizens who are impacted by this system. So we needed a long process to make the information available to all those impacted. So the most important is careers. And the contacts with careers started even earlier. We put there 2020, but we started even in 2019, working groups with careers, which basically discuss about this career interface, which is the tool they will need to use to be able to check that the travelers arriving to the, I always say the Schengen area, but as you have learned, it's a bit broader than the Schengen area, that the travelers arriving have the appropriate documentation and will not be rejected when arriving. So this is just one of the issues we discussed, because careers are also very concerned, and that's where you come, I suppose, by border crossing points preparation. Okay, the member states need to, and our colleague, I'm sure, will have lots of things to say about that. They will have to prepare the airports, the seaports, the land borders to be able to register these travelers, because the most important thing is that apart from the alphanumerical information which comes from the passport, in the first entry, the travelers need to have their biometric, so their facial image and their fingerprints taken. This is basically what registering means, okay? And so the careers are very concerned because their work or their is very related to the punctuality and the fact that when they arrive, some air carriers use some airports as hubs to sell transit tickets. So they have to ensure that the transit can be caught in time. So it's very important that this the flow of travelers is managed efficiently, so as to cater for this transit. So with careers, we started, as I said, even before 2020, and we have sessions with air carriers, land sea carriers, and also buses. No train, because this, well, it will be longer to explain, but just to mention that all our regulations are based on two main existing legal bases. One is the Schengen Borders Code, which you may know. And specifically for careers, we have the convention implementing the Schengen Agreement, the so-called CISA, and the Liability Directive. And there is where it has been established that rail traffic is not concerned by the obligations of carriers to check the passengers prior to boarding, which is what they have to do now through, as I said, via this carrier interface. So carriers help as well because, well, everything is connected, as you will see, but carriers are having their own information campaigns to sensibilize the passengers to what will happen in future. So they are a good way to disseminate this information across the world as they travel everywhere. And they are very, they have helped us a lot also in ways on how to handle the prior to boarding control, because they are used to the problems they face right now with all these documents, which may not be necessarily homogeneous in all member states, but they still need to recognize. Last but not least, we are discussing with them the consequences of the Brexit, as you know, because, and this is an issue which we will not cover here again, but this has impacted, the Brexit came, as you know, later than these regulations when they were adopted in 2017 and 2018, and when they were discussed mainly, Brexit was not in the horizon. So there is an important population that now is in the scope which was not expected to be in the scope. And this impacts hugely some border crossing points. I think that then we have to discuss which changes or what can be improved. There are even geographical difficulties in some border crossing points. For example, you may know that the port of Dover has a mountain just before, so there is a very limited space. So there is an impossibility to install so many kiosks and e-gates as well, jointly United Kingdom and France could be interested in deploying there to be able to automatize better these border crossing points. So sometimes it's this had not been taken into account because, as I said, Brexit came later. So when the discussions were there. So, all this is part of the discussions with carriers, as I said. Then we, as you know, the EU has delegations practically all over the world, and these delegations help us contact the national authorities, particularly the ministries of Foreign Affairs and the ministries of Transport, because we need to reach all carriers to make them aware of their obligations. Air carriers are in general well organized. They have IATA, they have Airlines for Europe and similar associations, regional associations. Sea carriers, it's also a bit the case. We have mainly CLIA, we have EXA, but bus carriers is much more difficult because they are in general small companies. So again, we have worked also with embassies and with diplomatic missions with the help of our external action system to contact them and to disseminate this information. And so the information campaign is being prepared. It's in the final stage by now, but it will only be launched 3 months before the start of operations. So if things go well as foreseen, it's in the third quarter, let's say, of next year. As from the second quarter, you should start seeing in the news information about the launching of the entry-exit system. And these communication materials will be provided also to member states, because the idea is that, well, the translations are also catered for, even if this system is mostly addressed to foreigners. So, but we are distributing it in all the languages as usual, apart from some, in this case, some foreign languages, which have been chosen the main, the most spoken languages. And so these communication materials will be provided to member states and to carriers several months before the start of the campaign itself, so that they can prepare as well their own campaigns at member state level, in airports, in seaports, in land border crossing points, and carriers who have told us that they could install it also in their vessels. And there you have the official website where you have the official information about the entry-exit system. So this is more or less what I wanted to tell you about entry-exit. Clearly, I'm open to questions afterwards. And let's now speak a bit about ETIAS, which is, as I said, the European Travel Information and Authentication System. Here, the purpose is to determine what we call security, migration, and high epidemic risks. We were aware of some risks which have called for the introduction of this ETIAS. And based on these risks, the idea is to pre-assess if the travelers may constitute such of a risk, and inform travelers as regards to their admissibility to enter Europe. Again, I use Europe, and then I will come to the scope to clarify further, which is the scope of ETIAS, but let's say Europe for the moment. And the idea is to facilitate the crossing borders, because as you pre-assess the travelers and inform them of the admissibility, you will have less refusals of entry at the border, okay? So these people will not travel directly because they will know in advance that they would be refused. So the idea is that then the crossing borders are facilitated for the vast majority of travelers, who are those that, in principle, do not constitute a risk. But as we always say, this is not the fact that the traveler gets an ETIAS doesn't mean that there cannot be a refusal at the border, but you anticipate those clear refusals, let's say. So this is the purpose of the ETIAS. The scope, well, first of all, this is an automated IT system for prior travel authorization, so you have to get it in advance. But then we can speak of it when you will see the mechanism. The system is in principle so quickly that at the beginning, where we foresee some travelers not being completely reached by the information campaigns, it could be possible that they get it quite quickly. But in principle, the idea is that these TIAs should be get prior to traveling. And by the way, there is an obligation of carriers to check it prior to boarding. So the idea is that a traveler who doesn't have an ETIAS shouldn't be allowed to board a plane, a boat, or a bus. And here, this is the big difference with the entry-exit, who in principle concerns all non-EU citizens, both visa required and visa exempt. The ETIAS is for nationals of visa exempt countries. You know that there is a visa regulation who has two annexes at the end, those countries who are visa required and those countries who are visa exempt. So here, ETIAS is mutually exclusive with the visa. So the citizens from visa exempt countries are those requiring an ETIAS. And again, it's for short stays. So for both entry-exit and ETIAS cover short stays, which is this rule, 90 out of 180 days. And here, well, the scope is one more than the entry-exit. We also have Cyprus included. So it's instead of the 29 countries, I cannot say member states, because you know that in the Schengen area, we have 4 countries who are not member states, no, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Iceland, and Norway. So that's we mention it this way. But here in ETIAS, we have one additional country, which is Romania. So basically, Ireland is the only member state who is not part of any of those systems, okay? And Cyprus is only part of ETIAS, but not of the entry-exit so far. And this ETIAS will cost, this is written on, this is written in the regulation, will cost €7 for all travelers who are between 18 and 70 years. There are rules for changing the fee, but in principle, this is the one with which we will start. So how does the process go then? So there is an online application. All this is on the web, on a web interface. The traveler first connects, pays their fee, and introduces all. This is a declarative mechanism, so all is based on what the traveler, this non-EU citizen, will declare on this form. So he will enter. I will go later a bit in detail, but he'll enter basically his personal information and answers to some questions. Based on this information provided, there will be this automatic application processing. So some databases will be consulted with the information, among them, of course, entry-exit. That's why entry-exit will enter into force before ETIAS, so that ETIAS can use information such as if this traveler has been an overstayer, for example. So, and then based on this automatic application processing, there is a response to application. What's important to mention here is that a positive answer may be completely automatic. There is some, no? Okay, so I thought there was some issue with the voice or, no? Okay. Go quickly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, let's go simply into the process. So, in principle, there will be a response to an application. So the traveler knows whether he has been issued or not an ETIAS. The carrier checks prior to boarding the ETIAS, And then there is the arrival to this area and the border crossing of the traveler, where there will be some border guard involved in the crossing. So again, it's only a few minutes to fill in. It will be very quick. And what they need is their passport, this information, and the credit card to pay the fee. So this is more or less what I explained, the ETIAS application process. So this is the information you will get. You see identity, the personal details, the travel document, if it's a family member, the country of first intended stay. This is what we call personal data. And then there will be questions on whether the person has been in a conflict on a war zone in the last 10 years, if he has been subject of criminal offenses, or of decisions to leave and return. So these are the kind of questions that you get. Well, there you have what I listed before, all the European countries requiring ETIAS. Then there you have a sea of the whole world. So in blue, it's the European countries which require the ETIAS, and in green is the area of the countries who are subject to ETIAS. All the rest are visa required, okay? If you go to the URL equivalent to the one of entry-exit, you see the whole list. There are 60 countries who require ETIAS. So the cost is 7, one-off fee, no cost for under 18 or above 70. The validity 3 years. During 3 years, you can enter as many times as you wish, but it must be valid during the entire duration of the stay. I will skip the transitional and grace period, but the planning it's a few months after entry-exit, because we need some time to allow the gradual introduction of entry-exit. So let's say that ETIAS would enter into force with the current planning in 2025, early 2025. This is the planning. And the consultation and information mechanism is similar to the one we had for entry-exit. So that's all.
Thank you very much. If I may, Fernando, because we are now friends and co-discussants on a discussion that will not be completed today, but on a discussion that will be continued even after the project completion, which is like in 4 or 5 days. Thanks to the exploitable results of the projects, the ones that we are planning to communicate, disseminate, and find ways to exploit, as well as thanks to the will of the consortium as a whole, as well as of the individual partners, to somehow continue the expertise that they have created, the knowledge that they have generated, and find ways to support further not simply the scientific community, as well as the systems, the operations, as well as the authorities and the stakeholders that are here today. As our coordinator stated at the very beginning, you are our first customers, so we are going to find you and we are going to engage you in a series of discussions in the upcoming future. Now, I will give the floor and pretty much everything to the other panelists that we do have. Let's start from Javier Galbally from EU LISA. Maybe you can just tell us 2 or 3 lines, some information about you and what you're representing here. Of course, you are all aware because it is within the booklet that we have shared with you, but just to be polite, please feel free.
Okay. This is working correct? Yes. Okay. So my name is Javier Galbally. As I was introduced, I work for EU LISA. So I work for the agency that will manage the 2 systems that Fernando just introduced and described. Someone needs to manage all that amount of data and all the connections to member states so that they can query the systems, and that is the agency that I work for. My background before joining EU LISA is very, I would say, technical in biometric recognition. That is where I have worked, and I still work at EU LISA, helping, as Fernando said, there is some biometric data in those systems. There are some biometric recognition processes involved, so I help with that. And before joining EU LISA, also working always related to biometric recognition, I worked for 9 years for the European Commission at the DG Joint Research Center. But yeah, basically, that's from my side.
Wrong. Okay. Thank you very much. And it is actually not just a good opportunity to find out and remember more about the systems, but as well as to to understand and realize that METICOS was proper in terms of time. From the very conceptualized, submission, and very implementation, we have been at the very proper moment. Next panelist, please, Marie, from the Estonian Police and Border Guard Board.
Hello, my name is Käärik, and I'm Data Protection Officer for Estonian Police and Border Guard Board. As you know, GDPR requires a TPO for many organizations, and law enforcement is one of them. So my job is to advise Estonian Police and Border Guard Board with questions regarding data protection. And every new system we are going to have, trust me, there are a lot of questions data protection officers need to ask to ensure the way we are going to process sensitive data is in compliance with GDPR and other regulations. So.
Now, together with the consortium and a series of other experts and friends and partners, we thought that it would be a good idea to have this, and I will join you now, I have to have this panel, because we didn't want to just have, a final conference and present you with every single detail of METICOS. There are deliverable reports for that. There is the project website and all the actual activities that we have performed so far. And after 2 hours, I believe that you are quite aware of what we are doing. So we thought that it would be a good idea to engage you in a discussion that could, as I said before, continue in the upcoming period and years. So we have created a series of questions for you. I'm quite certain that you are eager to listen to them and answer them. So let's start with the very first. What are the idea is that you can provide us with your input, and always you are more than welcome to provide additional input, remarks, comments, and whatever you find appropriate. The idea is to have a community experience today. So, first question, if I may, and this could be, these are addressed to all of you. Please feel free to stay to answer to them. If you're, but I mean, it is not obligatory for you to answer all of them. I mean, let's protect the mental sanity of the participants. So first question, what are the primary operational challenges currently faced by the border control sector, specifically in the integration of emerging border control technologies, and how are these challenges being addressed now? I have to read them from inside because, it's impossible to remember it. But let's see what your opinions would be. Let's start from Javier this time, and then.
I think, maybe EULISA would not be because we are, of course, involved and we will be managing the systems, but more at the central level. So once we receive the data that has been collected at borders. But at borders, it will be more border management agencies at each of the member states, and also Frontex would be the European agency that is coordinating all those efforts. From what I know, we are in contact and close contact both with Frontex and with those border management agencies in the member states. And while at airports, more the technologies are ready and in place, the big challenge at the moment, we could discuss also about airports, but more or less all the efforts are being driven towards those borders, and sometimes we forget there are other borders. And the ones that will bring the bigger challenge from a technical point of view, what we see is land borders. Managing land borders, the conditions are far less controlled there. The diversity of types of crossings is far larger. And so it is more difficult to find a technology that fits all. And so from my point of view and from a purely technical perspective, land borders would be the biggest challenge, I would say, at the moment.
Super. Thank you very much. you have clearly stated out the compatibility issue that it is there between the different borders. Maybe our dear friend Marie would like to...
I'd say one part is a question, can I rely on the new technology? And if I think about the border card, who is going to use it? This is the question she is going to have, because as we know, the more complex and more difficult the systems will be, they are all connected somehow to each other. We as a passenger maybe only see, okay, I give my passport, he does something with the passport, but there's actually background of data processing there. And if one of the systems falls, then pretty much it falls. And that's the question, can I rely on the system? Because if it happens once, twice, it really starts affecting on the employee trust, so to say. And can you imagine you're a border guard and there's a plane with hundreds of people coming in, you need to check the passports. And it's a stressful situation to be in actually, because people are tired, they maybe delayed flights. And that's really this human aspect to it. So this is something we really need to work on. The question, can I really rely on the system? And there's also, with every new system, we have legal questions, a lot of them. I'm not going really into the details of legal questions, because, you know, there's a saying that there's 5 lawyers, probably there are 10 opinions at the same time. But it also sometimes creates delays on big projects. So that's all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. You have clearly pointed out the need for having METICOS, because thanks to METICOS, I can imagine how it is to be a border guard, thanks to the VR solution. Indeed, there are issues regarding trust, the reliability of the traveler, and how they are actually afraid or not on their data, and how to use it properly, and they're getting anxious, and then there is a whole procedure which actually not helping the overall process, but makes it even more difficult and hard. But thank you very much indeed. Maybe my dear friend Fernando.
Well, what I could add is that it's true that the challenge is to conduct the accurate border checks. That's part of what Marie is saying related to the system working well, and obviously minimizing waiting times and the queues. But we have to remind also that the possibilities that this opens, because the registering of the biometric information, the facial images and the fingerprints, it's at the first entry. When this has been verified by the border guard, in the subsequent entries, this traveler can do everything automatically if member states provide the e-gates. So this is the challenge that the traveler sees that there is a reward, I should say, by the first registration, and in the next ones it goes. Obviously, if the traveler has no alerts in SIS or similar systems, they could go, as we are EU citizens now when entering or with our passports, they could go through a similar mechanism where no border guards should be involved unless it's strictly necessary. And this is part of what we are aiming at, that the border guards do the intelligence work, not the routine work where the automation can do what they do not need to do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any input from the participants? Of course, infrastructure, the training that the border guards are needed, or as well as the travelers. I mean, they also need some training. Is missing, but those are also some challenges. But thank you very much. They were quite great points. Please, of course.
I know it's working. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks to all the contributors to the panel. I was actually having a question about the enrollment procedure, because we've seen that on the Eurostar connection between UK and France, for the UK side, We've seen advances towards remote enrollment so that people do not have to enroll at the train station or at the airport, but can do it from their homes. And I was wondering whether this is something that has been considered by political stakeholders in the EU as well. And yeah, maybe also to put this in a broader context, maybe you could give us some insight on how long does it actually take in political processes to pick up a new innovation? Like how much back and forth is there, like in terms of discussions, like pros and cons? Yeah.
For me, it's clear, the first part. The second, maybe the colleagues can say more. As for the first part, yes, we are now considering what we call a mobile application, which would allow, indeed, travelers to pre-register, as you mentioned. So not necessary at the moment at the border crossing points with the kiosks which will be deployed, which are, as I have to remind, it's an optional feature, the kiosks. So it's only if member states are willing to do so. But we have developed the concept of a virtual kiosk, because the reference is to a self-service systems. So indeed, Frontex is developing a mobile application together with the Netherlands, which should be used for Schiphol Airport. And well, if it's a success, we would hope that other member states could follow and use it as well in the border crossing points where they consider it more useful. The second part, maybe the others, it was not so clear to me.
Yeah, second part was about the time, right? So there is not a clear answer because it depends a lot on from type of border to type of border. There needs to be more assessment regarding that. The idea of these systems is that, okay, of course, on the first entry into the Schengen, although there's, as Fernando said before, a couple of other countries that are included in these systems. But on the first entry, yes, it will take more time because you will have to enroll. You will have to do a procedure that you did not have to do before. So that takes time and it will take more time and there is no way around it. The idea is that in the next entries, that will be faster and it will help the travelers to get a more, what is the buzzword, right? The more seamless experience. So yeah, be painful the first time in order to get a benefit afterwards. Now, according to giving a seconds, minutes of how long that will take, it's difficult to say because it depends a lot on the airport, on the number of kiosks, on the number of border guards that will be there. If it's a land border, it will probably take longer than if it's an airport, so on and so forth. And I just wanted to add before regarding the acceptance of technology, and I'm not, explaining anything out of the ordinary here or anything that you have not seen or that you have not thought about, but there are, let's say, acceptance from two sides of every time you go into new technology. There is the acceptance of travelers. Of course, it is very important. Travelers need to trust the technology, use the technology, and see it as a benefit for them. Absolutely. But there is also, so that would go in the sense of this seamless experience for travelers. We want to keep Schengen open. We want to keep and welcoming. However, we also want to keep it secure, and that's the second part. Technology also has to be accepted by the border managers and by law enforcers. So it's difficult to develop a new technology and to install it and deploy it in operational scenarios because you have to balance these two realities. The reality of let's make the life of travelers easier, help them, but let's also help the border guards that are trying to do their job as efficiently as possible. And that second part is related to security of the area, of the borders. So you have, seamless travel, and security. And in a ways, it is not contradictory, but sometimes it is an opposite need, let's say. So we need to find the right balance between both. I just wanted to point that out. Also, since coming back to the question, what is one of the challenges? Balancing those two realities is a challenge, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you also like to answer, or we can move to the next question, because I probably will be here until night. Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for the answer, because I kept a lot, but in order to make the bridge to the next question, no, it's okay. These two words, acceptance, trust by the travelers, by the authorities, and at the very end, you made it excellent, by the law enforcers. And now comes the second question. In your opinion, of course, what is the primary obstacle you encounter when attempting to adopt technologies developed by EU-funded projects like our own? And the most important word, how much trust do you place in such technologies once developed by EU-funded projects? That goes to all of you. But maybe we could start...
I have spoken a lot, so somebody else.
Let's start with our very own in order to make it easier.
Well, I will start with the trust part. Definitely, I personally trust the systems. And what I saw in METICOS, I'm really happy I was part of it like for 3 years. Because I really saw the development and the questions we had, the discussions we had, because there were many ideas thrown out at the beginning, and what was the end solution. So that was kind of process, and that's why I see the trust, because we really had those discussions, and that's a good thing. And I really hope it works the same way in other projects. I'm not so familiar, maybe. But the main obstacle one is enforcement as a whole system at the same time. And you really can't do like half part of it. And that's what in METICOS Vienna pilot really brought out, that we need the system as a one whole big system, not some bits of parts of it. And also obstacle right now is in my everyday work with new systems. We need to test with real data, and that's right now the issue, because yes, you can make some synthetic data, but sometimes it's not possible, or it's too hard, because real data really shows what's happening in real life, so to say. But once you say the phrase real data, then myself as a TPO, I have a question about legal basis and the next questions. And I think more and more we develop our systems, the more we will ask a question like how I can test or with real data. So that's really obstacle right now. So to say, although we try to work on it. So in Estonia level.
Great, thank you. As we are passing by the microphone, real data in order to achieve reliability, and a whole platform, one tool in order to achieve effectiveness, and in order to be able and have long-term support, because this is also, a factor that plays a huge role, right? Please. Let's do it the opposite way. Yeah, let's do it the opposite way so that you can...
No. Of trust, Marie has already spoken, but in general, we cannot consider technology aseptically, and we have to be conscious of the political context and the social acceptability. And particularly when you are adopting the legal base, where you need many stakeholders, the insistence is that the solutions have to be proportionate, and balanced, and they have to take into account privacy and fundamental rights. So, and there is also the principle of purpose limitation, which the key principle is that the personal data is processed for a specific and unique purpose. So that's where Marie must be an expert, but That's why I say when you think of technology, then you have to see how the technology you are developing adapts to these principles, which will have to be considered in all legal bases. They will be there.
Thank you very much. Please.
I just wanted to add, okay, for me, building trust is about knowledge. I mean, it's very difficult to trust anything that you don't know well, or a person. Do you trust this person? Well, you trust the person after you have spoken to that person for many years, and you have to build trust in it. And with technology, I believe it's very similar. Once you have to be informed, use it, and see that it works. So basically, it comes to, and especially now from the EU LISA perspective, for travelers, I think they will build trust over time if the system works. If they go through the border and it works every time and it makes their life easier. Border guards will trust the technology if they see that they detect frauds or if they see that it's helping their everyday life. From the management or the agency that is building the system or will manage the systems, it's to build trust in one specific technology, you need to see the results. You need to see the testing. You need to see that it has been tested. So exactly what Marie was saying. We need to test it on real operational data. Otherwise, the persons that are actually building the systems will not use that technology because they will have doubts. If it has only been tested on simulated data, if it has been tested on synthetically generated data, how do I know that that will be the performance in a real operational scenario? So to build trust in the technology, in all three phases, border guards, travelers, and management of the system, is testing the system with real data and seeing that it actually works. That's what I would say. Now, where to get the data? Sometimes I have the feeling that we are shooting we all see it. We all see the need for the data. We want to use the data, but we build our own rules to avoid us from using the data. So we are shooting our foot in some cases.
Thank you very much. We have a question, so please.
Do you think that machine learning could bridge the gap between dummy or synthetic data and real data so that apps can be tested in a more, how can I say, realistic environment?
Okay. For example, for biometrics, there are certain algorithms that are able to generate synthetic data. However, it will never substitute real data because it's very difficult to simulate all the variability that you can find. Well, I said never. I should never say never. I mean, ChatGPT, it was never going to exist, and it's here. And maybe in 10 years' time, an Android from the future comes here, and we don't know. Okay, but it is unlikely. Why? Because the models that are generating the synthetic data, in order to do that, have been trained on real data. So if the real data where they have been trained is limited, they will only capture that type of variability, and they will only generate synthetic data that resembles or mimics that real data. So you see, it's like the chicken and the egg. You're generating synthetic data with machines in order to train other machines to identify the real data. But at some point, you need the data to train either the synthetic generator or to evaluate and the recognition system, the machine learning system. So at some point, if your initial real data that you need does not capture all the variability that you have in real data, the one that you will synthetically produce will be biased or will not represent all the possibilities that you have in the real. Not sure if I'm explaining.
You're right, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. I think that, please, Sule.
Just a comment, not to misunderstand what METICOS is doing. Actually, we cannot say that METICOS is based on synthetic data. Originally, we started with synthetic data, but there was this 8,000 traveler data collection. Also, we collected Twitter data, which was from real travelers. We can assume the pilots are also based on real data, but in a more constrained way. And we allowed in our pilots for writing free text. And we did extractions of traveler opinions from that as well. And actually, we got in touch with Eulisa as well to get some data.
Yeah, and I apologize. I did not express myself correctly. I did not mean that METICOS is only doing simulated data or synthetic data. I know you started like that, but then you captured real data, and that's clear. And it was not my intention to say or to critique METICOS.
In case there are some misunderstandings, but then we still have time to continue experiments with the METICOS pilot. If some data comes from other sources like Eulisa, still we can do more experiments with our tool. Yeah, thank you.
Great. And I think that we also have another question from a partner. Why not? Yeah, please.
I second with the thing which you suggested, building trust into these ABC gates or technologies from the traveler side. So the more they use, they will be more comfortable with using the technology during their travel. This was the one thing we also identified from, we have that attribute travel frequency. So the traveler who were more frequent and with the background knowledge already with the technology were having good acceptance as compared to people with less travels. And with that, this was also identified from the data we collected from the pilot that this frequency has some impact on the overall acceptance. And then based on this, we also suggested, I don't know, current technologies which are deployed, they do this, they perform this measure or not, that people who are more and more frequent, the technology should be more quicker to verify them during their travel. So if they are more frequent, it should not take much time for them as compared to the people who are less frequent during their travel or using these technologies. So this could be an additional add-on, can be supported or can be added into existing systems which are deployed at the BCPs. Thank you.
Thank you. As long as you're keeping the microphone, you have to.
No.
Great. Maybe, Mohammed, you also have a question?
I don't want to hijack the microphone.
Please. It is the NTNU time now.
Hello. So I just have a small comments when we talk about trust, because what I was thinking about is the main challenge with the technology is that the first to talk about the trust between who and whom. So in case of the border control, I think we have to investigate more on the trust between the border control authorities and the travelers, which that the travelers should trust the policy that is generated from the border control. And then you also have to look at the point where we investigate the trust between who and what. That's the travelers, the border control, and the technology, which is proposed to improve the border crossing. And then what, the trust between what and what is the technologies that we're talking about, the data and collecting of data. So I think we will not come to the extent that where the travelers will trust to give us more data to test real data, or the border control, that to give data to the system to be tested, until we come to the first point where who and whom trust each other. So I think it's the policies that play the big role on trust here. Thank you.
I agree 100%. Nothing to. I think it is very important between who and who in the end, because it's not so much about, trusting the technology is about accuracy and seeing that it actually works. But even if you see that it actually works, you have to trust who is using it, yes. And that is who is behind it, so, yeah.
Great. And what started as a technological project will end as a philosophical question. Thank you very much. To tell you the truth, as it seems, I'm again the last frontier between you and happiness, because we are about to have the lunch break. And I have prepared like 10 more questions for you. So a good idea would be to agree that we will continue this discussion, that we will provide you our questions via an email, and maybe we can rearrange this or have your input. And I will only keep my very last one before I also give the microphone for a final thank you to our coordinator, which is very positive because I like to close pretty much everything in a positive way. So looking ahead, what are the major changes or improvements you would like to see in the EU border control in the years to come? And how do you think solutions like METICOS could contribute? Of course, in a way, we have already added some points to that, but let's make it as a recap in order to close on a very good and positive way, and then go outside and have lunch. So whoever wants to just be positive, it's okay.
Well, there is always, in one side, in our case particular of entry-exit, what we want is that times will be constantly reduced. Technology will always help to increase the performance, the comparison times. All the times will be continually reduced. And clearly that this will lead to an acceptance because of what we said, that the passengers will see that the hassle at the first entry will be rewarded by what happens in the next entries.
Thank you.
From EULISA perspective, not receiving complaints from member states, that will mean that, and that is what we are working for, reducing as much as possible. That will mean that we are doing our job correctly. And if we don't receive complaints by member states, it means that member states are not receiving complaints by travelers. So in the end, it's a full circle. Everyone's happy. Also from carriers, if we don't want to receive complaints from member states or carriers that have to connect to our systems, that means that the system is working correctly and that is helping. So yeah, that would make us happy and smile.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Marie?
I think more atomized solutions to help us with border crossing as a passengers and also as a law enforcement to do our job and secure our areas. So I think more positive projects that we are going to do to build the trust. The next steps will be easier. So
great. Thank you very much. Let's give the microphone to our project coordinator simply to say a few words. But before that, thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much for your ideas and your suggestions over the changes. We can continue this discussion in order to point out the very real need for a similar future call and the very real need for a similar second project to be submitted from our side. So please,
yes,
coordinator.
Also from my side, as coordinator of METICOS, I would like to thank you for the fruitful discussion. Also, Representative METICOS, I want to say that we shot our leg many times in METICOS. It lasted 13 months to us to clear the situation with the regulations and the ethical constraints. For me and for METICOS Consortium, the situation inside Europe is clear regarding the border checks, the rules, the procedures. And the question is what is happening with the outer border of Europe. And this is also the question, the challenges and the objectives we are facing in the topics we have in security, let's say, calls. And this is what it seems, this is the messages that we are receiving. Europe is trying to, let's say, consider its outer borders. Also, I want to take into account the situation around us, Ukraine, and the flows we had from this situation. We have a war at the eastern of Europe. And also we have incidents from the north of Europe, or from the south of Europe, from Africa. So maybe we need to begin discussions or to reconsider how, let's say, how we will address, let's say, the European security. As you already mentioned, we have regulations that cannot support this, the security research. I am in the area for 20 years, and this was the only problem we have, the regulations. Of course, also, Julio, we had the same discussion in media panels. We respect the regulations, we respect the laws, and for sure we are in line for this, but we need to decide how deep we want to go in our security research as Europe. Because also, as I already mentioned, we are facing all these problems around us. This is for me. Thanks a lot for the fruitful discussion. We are looking forward for another discussion on that.
That was a positive closing. Thank you very much.
No, it's reality, unfortunately. We cannot forget that.
I agree. So thank you very much. Thank you very much all for participating.